Hello and welcome back, adventurers. This is Captain TTRPG, and today we're talking about Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Welcome back, adventurers. Today we're going to be talking about the Alchemist, and specifically we're going to be ranking its subclasses. That is to say, we're starting off a whole new event where I'm going to go through every class. There's a lot of them. At least 23 or 25 by the time I end this. Well, maybe 27. We'll see when it ends. We're going to rank the subclasses for every class as we go through this months-long event that I've got planned. And this is our first. So to kick it off properly, before we talk anything about the Alchemist at all, it's important that I say how I'm going to rank these and why I'm doing it. So in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, they've done a good job of trying to contain the math and therefore make a lot of builds a lot of characters viable. But within every class, there are still subclasses that'll perform better in combat or social situations or exploration than the others will. So I want to give an idea for players out there who are coming to a class, who want to feel out the mechanics of a certain subclass, how they might differ or build upon what's in the base, so they can make an informed choice, not because they need to build the best version of the class or that there's a right way. There isn't, and all subclasses will be viable. You can play them and have fun. But I still want to give some way to compare them to each other. I got this idea from some of my favorite content creators. So if you have ever checked out the Dungeon Dudes or Treant Monk, these are D&D 5e content creators. While I certainly play Pathfinder 2nd Edition, I do love D&D 5e, played it a lot, and some of my favorite content creators create content for that system, and I still watch them every time a new video comes up. With that in mind, I really need to kick this off about talking what do my rankings mean. So my list will go from S to D, and on screen you're going to go ahead and see my criteria for each rank. So for S, this is a subclass that is just clearly mechanically stronger for combat than the other subclasses, and at the same time isn't going to fall behind in the other pillars of play that fit the class. So not every class is amazing at social, for instance, but might lean well into exploration. This shouldn't take away from that, but it's really excelling at combat. Basically, it's a subclass that almost feels like a default or the right choice. And again, I don't think that's really a thing. I don't think we're going to see a lot of this in my videos, but it could crop up here and there. So don't expect a lot of S, but S usually isn't great for the system as a whole. A is a subclass that is strong in combat. You'll have a good time playing it. It fits the class. It takes what the class does and does it really, really well, while still being strong in other pillars of play. Also, it means that while Pathfinder 2nd Edition is a cooperative game, something that lands in the A or the S should also be very strong in a team-based game. So you might have specific abilities that help others in your team. That's a sign of a really strong subclass. Talking about B rank, this is a subclass that's still mechanically strong on its own, does a good job of boosting the party some of the time, but it's probably not really strong at both, and it might not be particularly amazing in another pillar of play, or it might be, but only in certain campaigns. So this is kind of it could be a great fit for you, but it isn't just universally great. Still a really good choice. B is a strong grade here on my list. C is a subclass that really isn't amazing. It's not going to build a whole lot on top of the class. You're not going to feel like it's particularly strong, and it probably doesn't help prop up the others in an amazing way beyond what the base class does. There might be something very niche about it that you like and therefore want to use and go for it, but it doesn't have anything necessarily beyond that. And D, this shouldn't come up very often in this system either, but D is a subclass that almost takes away from the class. It's a trap, if you will. I look at something that gets a D as, boy, it sounded good when you read it, and then when you play it, it's really not going to be great. In fact, it's going to feel pretty terrible when you actually try to play this subclass. You'll still have the strengths of your class, but this almost kind of harms your class in your eyes when you play it. So don't expect a lot of Ds, but I really wanted to lay that out, make it very clear. We can jump into our first class, which is the Alchemist, because yes, I am going to do this in alphabetical order for the exact first video, and then we'll see. For those of you out there wondering, how is he going to do Monk and Fighter? They don't have subclasses. Yeah, haven't figured that one out yet. How is he going to do things like the Thaumaturge, where it's a choose 3 system over time, or something like the Kineticist? Lots of thoughts there. We'll get to that. I'm not going to worry about it for today because Alchemist does have subclasses. In fact, it has 4, and they're referred to as research fields. These 4 are Bomber, Chirurgeon, Mutagenist, and Toxicologist. So I'm going to walk through each of these, what they get from their subclass out the gate, and then I'll talk about any feats, if they get them, that are propped up, that require their subclass, that help prop up their subclass. But let's talk about what generally sets a subclass up as an alchemist. So a subclass for an alchemist gets a set of benefits right away, and then a few as you level up. So right away when you choose it at level 1, you get a couple of formulas. So every subclass gets some specific formulas. You already get, for being an alchemist, to choose 4 up front. This is just a couple more to add on to that are specific to what you're good at. So you have plenty of formulas at level 1 as an alchemist. Field benefit is the next thing you get at level 1. This is an advantage that is focused around your research field. So for bombers, it'll have something to do with bombs, but it won't be specific enough where I can say it'll follow this pattern. The last thing you get at level 1 is an upgrade to your versatile vials called your field vials. So the versatile vials, being a general class ability, these are vials that you can make during the day, not at the front of the day like you do with your advanced alchemy, but this is things that you can use quick alchemy for. These versatile vials by default can be thrown as bombs. You're going to get some upgrade to the way that field vials work for your subclass. That'll be very specific to you. Then at level 5, you get what's called a field discovery. This is a benefit that is specific to your type of alchemical items that you use most, and it makes you kind of the undisputed expert of your type of alchemical item. At level 11, you get advanced vials. This is a boost to that field vial feature from level 1. And at level 13, you get greater field discovery, which is a boost to your field discovery. So they're kind of building on each other, making you truly pull out a niche in your type of alchemical items. Let's kick this off with the Bomber then. This is a subclass all about throwing explosives, harming everybody in the area, and doing it better than anybody else can. While any alchemist can throw bombs and any alchemist can take bomb-related feats, you're going to be the best at them because of the benefits you get related to throwing bombs. So what do you get related to throwing bombs? Again, level 1, you get 2 more bomb formulas. You probably would have taken a few anyway, but this way you guarantee yourself a few, and you can, with your general alchemist formulas, take, vials for healing or things of that nature that are more helpful for the rest of your party. You're going to get at least 2 bomb formulas anyway. What is your field benefit then? This is the ability to control the splash zone, which means you don't have to harm everybody in the area when you throw something. Normally, when you throw a bomb, if you got an ally next to whatever enemy you threw it at, they're going to take splash damage. You don't have to do that anymore. You can ignore your friends in that splash damage. And that can be a big deal because AoE is a big part of what the bomber's here for. Your field vials, it allows you to change the damage type of your field vials. So normally you can throw a field vial as anybody, as a bomb, and deal acid damage. However, you get to throw them and choose one of many different types of damage and change it to that. And that's a big deal. That'll help you trigger different weaknesses or avoid resistances or immunities. So being able to change that for just a simple bomb, if you don't have your other bombs ready to go, can be a huge benefit. Your field discovery is at level 5, the splash damage caused by your bombs will no longer be whatever's listed in the item, because to tell you how bombs work, there are certain levels to the bombs. They'll tell you the damage they do, any bonus to your attack rolls, and then your splash damage. At level 5, the splash damage would normally, on a bomb, usually be 2. You instead get to just change it to your intelligence modifier, which at this point is, if you built your character the way they suggest, a +4. Nice little boost to damage, and it'll get better later on, but that's a nice boost to damage. So AoE damage already getting better. Then at level 11, your versatile bombs that you get then that you were changing the damage type on, now you can actually make them trigger weaknesses of certain types of metals. So now when you throw a bomb at a creature, if it has a weakness to adamantine, cold iron, or dawn silver, you can trigger that weakness that they have with your versatile vial bombs. And that is a huge deal. Triggering weaknesses in this game is a massive amount of damage, and even your splash damage can trigger weaknesses. And finally, at level 13, your splash range goes from 5 feet to 10 feet. Now there's a feat that already changes it from 5 feet to 10 feet, and if you have that, instead it goes from 10 to 15. Now one thing that's not listed in here that you can't see is there's also a feat that lets you add your intelligence modifier to the splash damage of a bomb. So you're getting to add that on. So really all your bombs are doing splash damage equal to twice your intelligence modifier, which is a considerable amount of damage. Even at level 10, when you get that, you have a +5 by then. That's 10 damage you're doing to everybody in the AoE who is just an enemy, because you don't have to hit your friends. So if you really want to be great at blowing things up, this is the way to do it. So most of that is talking about the damage side of things. You're not doing a lot to help your allies except not hitting them with your bomb damage, which is an advantage, but you're not really setting them up necessarily for greater success. Other than that, there are debuffs you can apply through your bombs, but since any subclass of Alchemist can do that, I don't really want to lean into that as something specific to the bomber. However, they are all bomb-related feats, so you'll probably take several of those. But I think because you're really hitting hard with damage, you're doing a great job with damage here, especially some AoE damage, which can be hard for martial classes, which you essentially are. I think that this is a B subclass. It'll do a great job. In certain campaigns, it may do an amazing job. If you're in a campaign where you're fighting, lots of creatures with specific weaknesses to elemental types of damage, or specific types of metal damage, in fact, later on, especially if there's a lot of, weaker enemies around, you could be tearing through them like nobody's business. So in the right campaign, this could be amazing, which is why I think it is a B. So good choice, have fun. It'll feel good while you're in combat. All right, next up is the Chirurgeon, and this is your alchemical healer. That's, in case nobody's heard that term before, I know it's not as obvious as bomber, but yes, you are a healer, which means that out the gate, you get 2 formulas for elixirs that have the healing trait, and that's more than just straight healing vials. That actually covers quite a few formulas, but it'll all be things to help out your allies and yourself if things go wrong. Your field benefit is that you can use crafting for any requirements that normally require medicine. What do I mean by this? Well, let's say that you are trained in medicine. That means that you can take the skill feat, battle medicine. And when you take battle medicine, or just generally when you treat wounds, you're going to roll a d20, you're going to add your medicine check or your medicine modifier, and that'll tell you whether you get to heal an ally. Well, you can skip medicine altogether now, because you get to roll it for all your rolls. You get to use it as a prerequisite for any skill feats or anything else that would require medicine. You can just use crafting, which is a huge deal. So no need to go into both to be good at healing. You can be healing with your vials or with your healer's kit and be good at both sides. It's a nice bonus, and that is really focused on your team members. All right, so your versatile vials. Your versatile vials turn into healing vials rather than bombs, and they can either be consumed or you can actually throw it at an ally. So while this isn't as powerful as, just drinking an elixir specifically made for healing, it's still solid healing. The one thing is they gain what's called the coagulant trait. So a quick side note here, the coagulant trait means that if you heal somebody with an item that has this trait, they can't be healed by another item with this trait for 10 minutes. So you're not going to toss multiples of these out at the same creature on the same turn, for instance. They can get hit by one. It might seem like a big deal, but most of that penalty is going to go away at level 11. So I wouldn't worry too much about it, but it is something to keep in mind. And the coagulant trait won't be on everything you have. It's just going to be on a few things you can make quickly and easily. Okay, so your field discovery. At level 5, when a creature drinks an infused elixir of yours with the healing trait, they gain temporary hit points on top of the healing equal to your int mod. So at level 5, again, that's another +4. You can just look at that as another +4 healing on top of the healing you're already doing, which is already very good. So you're doing healing on top of healing. You're really going to help boost up these allies. Now, they have to drink it to get this, and it has to be an infused elixir, but that's still very strong and something you can do. Just run over and pop it down their throat. At level 11, with your advanced vials, I already mentioned this, but now when you heal somebody with an elixir with the coagulant trait, as long as they were below half hit points when you gave them this, they aren't affected by coagulant. So as long as you're healing people who aren't just getting topped off, but you're healing your allies that are hurt significantly, suddenly there's no drawback, and you're just good to go. And finally, your greater field discovery at level 13, when you use quick alchemy to create any elixir of life, and there's different levels, but you're probably going to use the highest level, the healing you're going to do with that is maximum. No reason to roll. At this level, at level 13, your elixir of life would be the level 13 version, because there is a level 13 version, and all of your formulas do actually scale up for you. You don't have to re-get them every time. So at level 13, your elixir of life does 7d6 plus 18 by default. So that's an average of 43 healing for a non-Chirurgeon. For you, it is a guaranteed 60. And that's without the temporary hit points or anything on top. 60 healing you get to do, guaranteed anytime you use quick alchemy to give somebody an elixir of life. That is massive. And the fact that you can count on it is also massive. No low rolling. So there's exactly one class feat that requires this subclass, and it is actually a level 1 feat called Soothing Vials. This lets a creature affected by a mental effect re-roll that save anytime it receives hit points from one of your versatile vials. That save also gets a +1 item bonus. That is really strong. So not only do they get to re-roll, and mental effects are horrifying in this game, not only do they get to re-roll immediately, they get a +1 bonus to that roll. As far as an ally for your teammates, you are unrivaled, really, in trying to help somebody get out of a mental effect. As far as general healing, you're at the same place as pretty much a cleric at this point. You could be a dedicated healer for the party, a role that others really can't play. As far as doing damage, your subclass doesn't buff up your damage at all, but there's still plenty of good options because you can still, without taking any feats related to healing, you're already so strong at the healing because of what's in your subclass. You can take bomber feats or other feats if you want to go a different damage style and still hit really hard while being an amazing party healer. The way that you boost your party and keep them alive is unmatched by any other subclass. And I think because you can still play a role that is solid on the damage side while doing all of this healing, this is my subclass that I believe is an A for Alchemist. All right, next is the Mutagenist. This one, you're going to transform your own body in unnatural ways. You're going to drink down alchemical elixirs to change your own physical shape. Mutagens are interesting. They give you a set of bonuses, but every mutagen has some sort of drawback. Let's take Bestial, for instance. You'll see it on screen right now. This is a mutagen that gives you a +1 bonus to athletics checks and grants you different unarmed strikes. They're not very good at your base level, but you get them. And you also get a -1 penalty to AC and -2 penalty to reflex saves. And these are untyped, so it's not like they're circumstance or status. They just stack on top of everything else. That's a little rough. So there are drawbacks for the boost. Now, not every mutagen is going to feel the same, and some of the drawbacks you won't care about, but some you definitely will. Anyway, at level 1, you get your formulas, which is 2 mutagens. Your field benefit is you gain temporary hit points equal to your int modifier plus half your level when you drink a mutagen. That's a lot of temporary hit points. They last for 1 minute or until the mutagen wears off, but you can only gain the benefit once per combat. Well, it's once per minute, but that really means once per combat. So that's great, but you only get to choose it once. Still, it's a good amount of temporary hit points to gain, especially as your scales with you a level. So, at level 10, you're gaining 10 temporary hit points when you drink your mutagen at the start of the combat. That's really not bad. Your field vials, when you drink one of your field vials, you turn it into an elixir, and you get to suppress the negative effects of a mutagen you're already under. So first thing you did, you drank a mutagen, let's say bestial because we talked about it. Then you're going to use a field vial and toss that on down. You no longer have the minus AC and the minus penalty to reflex saves. You just get the bonus. That's fantastic. And if you're under the effects of 2 mutagens, because you have the combined elixirs feat or greater field discovery, you can only suppress the negative effects of one of them. But at least you've been able to suppress that which matters most to you. At level 5, your field discovery is when you roll a fortitude save and don't like the result, you can re-roll it by just ending a mutagen. So if you've got a mutagen going and something horrible happens to you and you crit fail a fortitude save, it might be worth it to just say, oh, mutagen's gone, re-roll, see if you can do better this time. It's definitely valuable. It can save you from something really terrible. Re-rolls are really fantastic to get, but it's not going to necessarily make you stronger with the use of your mutagens. The advanced vials at level 11 is when you drink a field vial, which already suppresses negative effects, remember. Now you also gain resistance to physical damage equal to half your level. This is a really strong boost defensively. Great. Now, even though I've got my bestial going, I can now get rid of its penalties and I can give myself resistance, which is a resistance of 5 because you're level 11 to physical damage. That's most of what's going to hit you. So that's a really nice bonus on top of also getting your temporary hit points. You're starting to look slightly tanky. And then the greater field discovery at level 13, you can be under the effects of 2 mutagens at once, gaining both benefits and both drawbacks. If you drink a third, then you have to remove the positive effects of one of them and its drawbacks. If by some reason, though, you end up under the effects of a non-mutagen polymorph, like an enemy spellcaster turns you into a creature, you're unfortunately going to keep your drawbacks for the 2 mutagens you drank, even though you don't have their benefits. So just keep that in mind. That can be really rough. That shouldn't come up very often. That's a very rare thing, so don't build for that, but it's something to keep in mind. So the challenges for the mutagens themselves are not strong, and trying to build an entire character around them can be really challenging. Obviously, you get some nice tankiness to it. You're not really boosting up your allies. Your damage, the mutagens aren't going to give you a massive damage boost. It's hard to really recommend this route in combat unless you want to try to go as, say, a tanky sort of alchemist, which alchemists really aren't designed to be tanky outside of this. So while there are certainly other feats that'll help you be better with mutagens, I think this as a subclass, for me, is a D. And I'm sure there's people out there who love it, who would say, it's a higher than that. There's probably people who would argue with me that it's an A in the right design. I think generally speaking, for somebody coming in who's not optimizing it, this is a bit of a trap. Anyway, that's just my take. Feel free to argue with me. All right, and we just have one subclass to go, the Toxicologist. This is a subclass that wants to deliver poisons, mostly through strikes. Before we jump in, a few notes about alchemical poisons. It takes 2 actions to apply a poison to a weapon or ammunition. And second, when a creature will need to make a save against poison, it's at the end of each of its turns, triggering further steps of the poison on a failure. So they'll roll right away and there'll be some effect. Then the end of every one of those turns, they can try again and they'll trigger further effects of the poison on a failure. Poisons have a built-in save DC, but you're an alchemist, so you use your own class DC, which while class DCs aren't as good as things like spell save DCs, they're much better than item DCs, so this is a huge bonus to you. And finally, if you critically miss with a poison weapon, it loses the applied poison. Having said all of that, let's get into this, and we're going to understand why I brought up all those details about alchemical poisons. You start by gaining 2 formulas for alchemical poisons. No surprise, just following the pattern. Field benefit. You can apply an alchemical injury poison. There are different types of poisons. Look for injury poisons. To a weapon or piece of ammunition with 1 action instead of 2. That is huge. Also, your poisons count as acid if the creature would be more affected by acid than poison. So if you're fighting a creature that's immune to poison, but has no resistance or immunity to acid, it'll automatically do the acid damage. Or in best case scenario, it's immune to poison and has a weakness to acid. Great, you're triggering that. Or the other way around. It's got immunity to acid or resistance to acid, but it's not weak to poison, or sorry, it has a weakness to poison or is not resistant at least. You're going to do poison. So the DM will make that for you. You're going to do the best of the two. Field vials. Your versatile vials are poisons instead of acid. So that bomb you throw, instead of being acid, it's poison. Now, because of your field benefit, as it's a poison, it can be either poison or acid, whichever is most damaging. So you kind of get both at once still. Also, you can apply your versatile vial to your weapon as an injury poison, which deals the versatile vial's initial damage on strike. So rather than having to throw it like a bomb, you can still slash with it, pour it on your weapon and slash, or fire an arrow that you've dipped into this. So nice ways to use your versatile vials. All right, at level 5, your field discovery, you are poison resistant. It's not bad. It's equal to half your level. A common enough type of damage to take, not as common as what we saw for the Mutagenist with physical damage, but still it's nice to have. At level 11, when you hit a creature with a weapon poisoned by your versatile vials, you deal persistent poison damage equal to the vial's splash damage. Again, poison meaning it can be poison or acid. That's a big deal. The splash damage may not be huge, but persistent damage is amazing, especially if it's triggering weakness. Every time they take damage from that persistent damage, they're triggering that weakness. So persistent damage can be pretty powerful against a lot of different creatures. And your greater field discovery at level 13, when a creature fails its save against one of your injury poisons, you can cause it to spray that poison at an adjacent creature. So if you have, and two enemies stacked up next to each other because of the way your allies have set up or whatever it may be, now you get to poison 2 creatures at once. That's amazing. Will it come up all the time? No. But it should come up often enough that it feels good when it happens. And this is the full effect of your poison. Now, if all you have is an ally next to that creature, you don't have to spray it at all. It's a choice to spray it. But when it works, it's going to feel really good, especially as you're using stronger and stronger poisons all the time. Poisons themselves aren't amazing damage, but when you get up to this level and your ability to do poison or acid, it can be a huge boost on top of the damage that you, as an alchemist, are doing. Or, keep in mind, all of these things you could be giving to an ally. You don't have to be dealing damage with the alchemical poisons yourself. They just have to be made by you. And that's what I want to get into here. While you can be fairly strong, you can deal good damage this way, you can also help your allies deal a ton of damage. Maybe you don't want to rely on having to, shoot a blow dart at somebody and hope it hits with your not amazing chance to attack. But your fighter would certainly appreciate all the poisons. They could certainly gain a lot of value out of what you're doing here. This can be a really strong buff subclass for your allies. However, it can still do decent damage on its own. I don't think it's going to be as strong as the damage from something like a bomber, where you're doing extra AoE damage and you're changing the types of that. The types that they get are so many more and so much more varied that I think they have a stronger setup for personal damage. But as far as ally bonuses, you're much stronger at that. And that's why, kind of give take here, you're not as strong as the bomber, but you can help your allies. And you're probably going to focus heavily on poisons, so you're probably not going to lean into other types of damage. I teetered on A or B for this one. I think it sits really alongside the bomber as a B. So that's my take on it. And there we go. That's all of the current released subclasses for the Alchemist. How would you have rated them? I'm guessing way different than I did. Have you found that the Mutagenist is maybe really strong and that Chirurgeon just isn't worth playing? Let me know down in the comments. Thank you for joining me again today, and as always, adventure on.